Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the lecture on data communication. Today we are going to discuss about Module 4. In Module 4, we are going to discuss about data link control, MAC access control, introduction to data link layer, and IP version 4 addressing and subnetting. So first we will see about what you mean by DLC services or data link control. Till now, in module 1, 2, 3, we have discussed about physical layer. Now we are moving from physical layer into the data link layer. As you remember, data link layer always take data from its upper layer, that is network layer, and it will forward that into the lower layer, that is physical layer, in the form of frames. So now we are going to study about how data link layer works. So the data link layer is divided into two sublayers, that is into a data link layer DLC and other one into multiple access control MAC. So in this we are going to study about upper sublayer of data link layer DLC and the lower sublayer multiple access control MAC. So the data link control, it basically deals with procedure for communication between two adjacent nodes or node to node communication, no matter whether the link is dedicated or broadcast. Data link control function include framing and flow and error control. Error control already we have seen in the previous module. So now we'll see what you mean by framing. Data transmission in the physical layer means moving bit in the form of signals from the source to the destination. The physical layer provides bit synchronization to ensure that the sender and receiver uses same bit duration and timing. The data link layer, on the other hand, need to pack bits into frames so that each frame is distinguishable from another. Just consider the example of our postal system. The simple act of inserting a letter into the envelope separates one piece of information from another. The envelope serves as the delimiter. In addition, each envelope defines the sender and the receiver address, which is necessary needed for postal system. So, framing in the data link layer separate a message from one source to a destination by adding sender and the destination address. When a message is carried in one very long frame, even a single bit error would require retransmission of the whole frame. That is, you can think that whole message could be packed in one frame, but that is normally it is not done, because if the frame is very large, it will make flow control and error control very inefficient. And when a message is carried in one very long frame, even that single bit error would require the retransmission of whole frame. So when a message is divided into smaller frames, a single bit error affect only that small frame. Next we will see what you mean by frame size. Frames can be of fixed or variable size. The fixed size framing, there is no need for defining boundary of the frames, because the size itself it will act as the delimiter. For example, you can consider ATM van, which will uses fixed size frames called as cells. The other type is the variable size framing. Here there is no need for defining boundaries of the here we need a way to define end of one frame and beginning of the next. So here, basically, in order to define these variable size framing, two approaches are used. One is a character oriented approach, the other one is called as the bit oriented approach. So first we'll see what I mean by character oriented framing. So in character oriented framing, data to be carried are 8-bit characters from a coding system such as ASCII. The header, which is normally carries the source and destination address and other control information. So header always contains source and destination address along with other control information. The trailer will carry the error detection redundant bits. These are also multiple of 8 bits. So to separate one frame from the next, a 8-bit flag is added to the beginning and to the end of each of the frame. The frame composed of protocol dependent special characters signals and start and end of the frame. Character oriented framing was popular when only text was exchanged by the data link layer. The flag could be selected to be any character not used for text communication. Now we will send other type of information such as graphs, audios, videos. Any character used for the flag could not be part of the information. If this happens, the receiver, when it encounters this pattern in the middle of the data, thinks it has reached the end of the frame. So to fix this problem, a byte stuffing strategy was added to character oriented framing. In byte stuffing, a special byte is added to the data section of the frame when there is a character with the same pattern as that of the flag. The data section is stuffed with an extra byte. This byte is usually called as escape character and has a predefined bit pattern. Whenever the receiver encounters escape character, it removes it from the data section and treats the next character as data, not as delimiting character. Byte stuffing by the escape character allow the presence of the flag in the data section of the frame, but it increases another problem. What happens if the text contain one or more escape character followed by a byte with the same pattern as that of the flag? The receiver removes the escape character but keeps the next byte, which is incorrectly interpreted as end of the frame. To solve this problem, the escape characters that are part of the text must be marked by another escape character. In the other word, if the escape character is part of the text, an extra one is added to show that second one is part of the text. So here you can see. The character-oriented protocol present another problem in data communication. The universal coding we use nowadays, such as Unicode, have 16-bit and 32-bit characters that conflict with 8-bit character. So in order to overcome this, we will go for the next kind, that is bit-oriented framing. In bit-oriented framing, the data section of a frame is a sequence of bits to be interpreted by the upper layer as text, graphics, audio, video, and so on. However, in addition to header, we still need a delimiter to separate one frame from the another. Most protocol uses a special 8-bit pattern flag 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0 as the delimiter to define the beginning and end of the frame. So here you can see flag is 0 followed by 6 ones followed by 0. Again, the end of the frame is also defined in the same way. Header and trailer will be there along with the data. this flag can create same type of problem we have seen in the character oriented protocol. That is, if the flag pattern appear in the data, we need to somehow inform the receiver that this is not end of the frame. That is, if that same pattern of flag repeats in the data, somehow we have to inform the user that it is not end of that frame. So we need to do this by stuffing one extra bit to prevent pattern from overlooking like the flag. This strategy is called as bit stuffing. In bit stuffing, if a 0 and 5 consecutive 1 bits are encountered, an extra 0 is added. So here you can see in the data section, you can see there is a pattern that is 0 followed by 6 or 7 1 and followed by 0. So whenever such pattern appears, we have seen that how flag will come. Flag will always come with 0 followed by 6 ones followed by 0. So here what we will do is, whenever consecutive 5 ones appear, immediately we are going to add one extra 0 bit, so that it will not look like the flag. It will not be same as that of the flag. So this extra stuffing bit is eventually removed from the data by the receiver. You can see this is at the sender side. Data from the upper layer is received, and the frame is created and it is sent to the receiver side. After receiving, data is forwarded into the upper layer, but by removing that extra 0 which is appended. So this note that the extra bit is added after 1 0 followed by 5 ones regardless of the value of the next bit. This guarantees that the flag field sequence does not inadequately appear in the frame. Next is about flow and error control. One responsibility of the data link sublayer is flow and error control at the data link layer. So first we will see what you mean by flow control. Whenever an entity produces item and another entity consumes them, there should be a balance between production and consumption rate. If the data are produced faster than they can be consumed, the consumer can be overwhelmed and may need to discard some item. If the items are produced more slowly than they can be consumed, the consumer must wait and system become less efficient. Flow control is related to the first issue. We need to prevent losing the data item at the consumer side. In communication, a data link layer, we are dealing with basically 4 entities. That is, network and data link layer at the sending node, and network and data link layer at the receiving node. The figure will shows the data link layer at the sending node tries to push frames towards the data link layer of the receiving node. If the receiving node cannot process and deliver the packet to its network layer at the same rate that the frame arrives, it becomes overwhelmed with frames. Flow control in this case can be feedback from receiving node to the sending node to stop or slow down pushing the frames. So what's the solution for this? One of the solution may be the use of buffer. Here we are going to use 2 buffer, one at the sending data link layer here and the other at the receiving data link layer. A buffer is set of memory location that can hold packets at the sender and receiver. The flow control communication can occur by sending signals from the consumer to the producer. When the buffer at the receiving data link layer is full, it will inform the sending data link layer to stop pushing the frames. So this can be one of the solution. So next we will see about error control. Since the underlying technology at the physical layer is not fully reliable, we need to implement error control at data link layer to prevent the receiving node from delivering corrupted packet to the network layer. Error control at data link layer is normally very simple and implemented using one of the two methods. In both of these methods, a CRC cyclic redundancy code is added to the frame header by the sender and checked by the receiver. So here two methods are discussed. In the first method, if the frame is corrupted, it is silently discarded. On the receiver side, receiver will receive the frames, and if it is corrupted, it is just discarded. If it is not corrupted, packet is delivered into the network layer. This method is used mostly in wired LAN such as Ethernet. In the second method, if the frame is corrupted, it is silently discarded. If it is not corrupted, an acknowledgement is sent to the sender. This is for the purpose of both flow control and error control. Flow and error control can be combined. In a simple situation, the acknowledgement that is sent for flow control can also be used for error control to tell the sender the packet has arrived uncorrupted. The lack of acknowledgement means that there is a problem in sent frame. So we'll see what you mean by connectionless and connection oriented. A DLC protocol can be either connectionless or connection oriented. What do you mean by connectionless protocol? In a connectionless protocol, frames are sent from one node to the next without any relationship between the frames. Here, each frame is independent. Here, note that the term connectionless does not mean that there is no physical connection, means there is no transmission medium. It is not like that between the nodes. It means that there is no connection between the frames. Okay, it does not mean that no physical connection between the nodes. It means that there is no connection between frames. The frames are not numbered and there is no sense of ordering. Most of the data link protocols for LANs are connectionless protocols. Next, what do you mean by connection oriented protocol? In a connection oriented protocol, a logical connection should first be established between the two nodes. It is called as setup phase. After all frames that are somehow related to each other are transmitted, this is called as transfer phase. The logical connection is then terminated. This is called as tear down phase. In this type of communication, the frames are numbered and sent in order. If they are not received in order, the receiver need to wait until all frames belongs to the same set are received and then deliver them in order to the network layer. Connection oriented protocols are rare in wired LANs, but you can see in some point to point protocol in some wireless LANs and some WANs. Next we are going to see about what are data link layer protocols. Traditionally, here we are going to discuss about 4 different protocols, that is a simple protocol, a stop and wait protocol, a go back n protocol, and selective repeat. So before going for discussion about these protocols, first we will see how we can represent the behavior of a protocol. The behavior of the data link protocol is better shown in the form of a finite state machine, FSM. as you will be knowing, FSM is a machine with finite number of states. The machine is always in one of the state until an event occur. Each event is associated with two reactions defining the list of action to be performed and determining the next state. One of the state must be defined as initial state, the state in which machine starts when it turned on. The figure shows the simple FSM. So you can see the rounded corner rectangle used to define states. Color text shows events, and regular black text, that is this one, action, will show you the action, and the horizontal line will separate event and action. So this is a simple diagram. So here in this diagram you have three states. One is the initial starting state, then state 1 and state 2. There are only 3 possible events and 3 possible actions. The machine will start in state 1. If event 1 occurs, the machine perform action 1 and 2 and move into the state 2. When the machine is in state 2, two events can occur. If event 1 occur, the machine perform action, if event 2 occur, machine perform action 3 and remains in the same state. If event 3 occurs, the machine do not perform any action, but it will move into state 1. So this is a simple FSM diagram. So first we will discuss about the simple protocol. This is a simple protocol because here we don't have flow control or error control. We assume that the receiver can immediately handle any frame it receives. In the other word, the receiver will never be overloaded with incoming frames. The figure will show the same layout. So here the data link layer at the sender gets packet from the network layer, makes a frame out of it and send that frame. The data link layer at the receiver side receives a frame from the link, extract a packet from the frame and deliver that packet to the network layer. The data link layer of the sender and the receiver provide transmission services for this network layer. The sender side should not send packed frames until its network layer has message to send. The receiver side cannot deliver a message to its network layer until a frame has arrived. We can show these requirements using two FSMs. Each FSM has only one state, the ready state. The sending machine remain in the ready state until a request comes from the network layer to process. When this event occurs, the sending machine encapsulates that message into frame and send it into the receiver machine. The receiver machine remain in the ready state until a frames arrive from the sending machine. When this event occurs, the receiving message decapsulate that message and deliver that message into the upper layer, that is into the network layer. The below flow diagram, again it will show the communication using the protocol. The sender sends frame one after another without even thinking about the receiver. So you can see network layer will push the packet into the data link layer. Data link layer will create frame out of it and forward that into the data link layer of the receiver side, from there into the network layer. So since here you don't have any flow control or error control, simply the sending node will push packets into the receiving node. Next protocol what we are going to discuss is stop and wait protocol. It uses both flow control and error control. In this protocol, the sender sends one frame at a time and wait for an acknowledgement before sending the next one. When a frame arrives at the receiver side, it is checked. That is, its CRC value is checked. If its CRC is incorrect, the frame is corrupted and silently discarded. The silence of the receiver is a signal for the sender that a frame was either corrupted during transmission or lost. Every time the sender sends a frame, it starts a timer. If an acknowledgement arrives before the timer expires, the timer is stopped and the sender sends the next frame. If the timer expires, the sender resends the previous frame, assuming that the frame was either lost or corrupted. This means that the sender need to keep a copy of the frame until its acknowledgement arrives. When the corresponding acknowledgement arrives, the sender discards the copy and sends the next frame if it is ready. Just look at the diagram for stop and wait protocol. So here you can see this is the sender side. Here you can see the logical connection between the sender and the receiver is a duplex connection. So this is the frame which sender sends. You can see part of the frame is CRC, that is used to identify the transmission errors or to check whether the frame is corrupted or not. Similarly, you can see the acknowledgement which will be sent from the receiver to the sender. In the acknowledgement also, you can see there is a part CRC that indicates that even the acknowledgement can get corrupted during transmission. To check that, this CRC value is used. And you can see that in the sender side we have a timer. So the next diagram, it will show the finite state machine diagram for stop and wait protocol. So first we will see about the first part, that is the sending node. There are two states under sending nodes. It will be either in a ready state or it will be in blocking state. It can move between this ready and blocking state. So first we will see what is this ready state. So whenever the sender is in this particular state, it is only waiting for the packets from the network layer. If a packet comes from the network layer, the sender creates a frame and saves a copy of that frame, and then he will start the timer and send that frame. So here you can see, make a frame, save a copy of that frame. This save a copy, it is for retransmission purpose. If the packet is lost during the transmission, it need to be retransmitted, or if the timer is out, then packet need to be retransmitted. For that, a copy of the packet is saved. Then sender will move from ready to blocking state. So in blocking state, three events can occur. You can see over here, either timeout or corrupted acknowledgement can arrive, or error-free acknowledgement. So if the timer is out, that is, if a timeout occur, the sender resend the saved copy of the frame and restart the timer. The next event is, if the corrupted acknowledgement arrives, it is simply discarded. That acknowledgement is discarded. Or if an error-free acknowledgement arrives, the sender stop the timer. He is going to stop the timer and discard saved copy of that frame, and then it will move into the ready state. So now it will be ready to accept the next packet from the network layer. Similarly, you can see the next diagram, that is for the receiving node. So in the receiving node, we have only one state, that is ready state. So in this ready state, two events can occur. The first one, either the corrupted frame can arrive, or a error-free frame can arrive. So if the corrupted frame arrives, it will be simply discard that frame. Or if an error-free frame arrives, the message in the frame is delivered to the network layer and acknowledgement is sent. So this is how how stop and wait protocol will work. Now we will look at one example. So here there are three cases we are going to discuss. So first we will discuss about the first case. Here you can see network layer will push a packet into the data link layer. Data link layer will make a frame out of that packet and it will be sent to the receiver. So frame is received on the receiver side without any error or without any corruption. So here data is extracted and it is forwarded into the network layer and acknowledgement is sent back into the sender. The second scenario you can see here, sender will send a frame to the receiver, but during the transmission frame is lost. Lost means either it may be lost in the corruption or it will get corrupted during the transmission. So what happens, as you can see, as soon as a packet is forwarded, a timer is started. In the previous case also it is that timer is started, frame is acknowledgement is received before the timeout. So here as soon as it will send a frame, the timer is started. After some time the timer will get expired, so timeout event will occur. That indicates that the sender has not received the acknowledgement before timeout. So sender will retransmit that frame and it is delivered into the receiver. Receiver will send the acknowledgement before timeout. Now the third case is sender will send a packet, timer is started, it is delivered into the receiver node and from there into the network layer and receiver will send the acknowledgement. But here acknowledgement is lost during transmission. So on the sender side what's going to happen? Sender side timer is started, so after some time timer will expires. So sender will resend that frame. So here you can see as soon as frame is received, it is forwarded into the network layer and acknowledgement is sent back into the sender. But here the problem is this one. Same packet is delivered twice into the network layer. So in order to overcome this packet or overcome these duplicate packets, the next scenario is discussed, that is sequence and acknowledgement number. So here we need to add sequence number to the data frame and acknowledgement number to the acknowledgement frame. So here sequence numbers are 01, 01, 01. It will continue in that series. The sequence acknowledgement numbers will be 10, 10, 10. That sequence will continue. In other words, the sequence number starts with 0 and the acknowledgement number will start with 1. An acknowledgement number always define the sequence of the next frame to be received. So acknowledgement number will always tell what is the sequence number of the next frame it is expecting. So receiver is expecting. So here again we will discuss the same scenario. In the first scenario, sender will send a frame with sequence number 0. Receiver will receive that frame and he will send an acknowledgement with number 1. Here you can see acknowledgement number is 1. That indicates that next the receiver is expecting a frame from sender whose sequence number is 1. Go for the second case. Here frame 1 is sent. Look, frame 0 is sent. Next case frame 1 is sent, but it is lost during transmission. So as soon as timer expires, frame 1 is resent. So after receiving that packet, the receiver will send the acknowledgement. Now acknowledgement number is 0. So again you can see in the next scenario, frame number 0 is sent. It is delivered into the network layer and acknowledgement 1 is sent back, but acknowledgement is lost during transmission. So after timeout, sender will resend the frame 0. Since it has not received acknowledgement 1, it will resend that frame 0. So now here you can see on the receiver side, the receiver will send back the acknowledgement with sequence number 1, saying that now it is expecting for a frame with sequence number 1, not with 0. So here all you can observe one more thing. Here frame 0 is received, but its data is not delivered into the network layer since it is a duplicate packet. The other mechanism used is piggybacking. Protocols have been designed in the past to allow data to flow in both the direction. However, to make the communication more efficient, the data in one direction is piggybacked with the acknowledgement in the other direction. In the other word, when a node A is sending data to B, node E also acknowledges the data received from the node B. Because piggybacking makes communication at the data link layer more complicated, it is not a common practice. That means you just consider a scenario like this. This will be your A and this will be maybe B. So you just consider B has sent some data into A. Now next time whenever A send B has sent some data into A. Now B is expecting acknowledgement from A, right? Along with that, now just consider A has some data that need to be forwarded into B. Now here A, along with the data, it will also send the acknowledgement to B. This acknowledgement is for the previously received data. So this is called as piggybacking, that is data along with acknowledgement for the previously received data. So instead of sending this separately, it is sent together. This mechanism is called as piggybacking. The next protocol what we are going to discuss, it is point-to-point protocol or PPP. This is basically designed for point-to-point access. First we will see what are the services provided by this protocol. So it will basically define the format for frame to exchange between the devices. So here authentication is provided in this protocol, but which is optional. There is a new version of PPP which is called as multi-link PPP. It will provide connection over multiple links. So it will provide network address configuration. What are the services that are not provided by PPP? PPP does not provide flow control. Its error control mechanism is very simple. CRC is used for error detection. So lack of this error control and sequence numbering may cause a packet to be received out of order. So this protocol does not provide a sophisticated addressing mechanism to handle frames in the multi-point configuration. So this is the frame structure of point-to-point protocol. Point-to-point protocol uses a character-oriented or byte-oriented frames. The first field in this frame format is flag. A PPP frame starts and ends with the bit pattern, that is 0 followed by 1 1 1 1 1 1 0. So this is the flag pattern. It will start and end with that pattern. The next field is called as address. This address field in this protocol is a constant value and it is always set to 11111111. This is basically a broadcast address. Next is the control field. This field is set to a constant value, that is 00000011. So this protocol does not provide any flow control. Error control is also limited in error detection. The next field is protocol. The protocol field defines what is being carried in the data field, either user data or other information. This field is by default 2 byte long, but the two parties can agree to use only 1 byte. The next field is called as payload field. This field carries either user data or other information. The data field is a sequence of bytes with default of maximum of 1500 bytes, but this can be changed during negotiation. The data field is byte stuffed if the flag byte pattern appear in the in this particular field, because there is no field defining size of this data field. Padding is needed if the size is less than that of the maximum default value or the maximum negotiated value. The last one is FCS, frame check sequence. It is simply a 2 byte or 4 byte standard CRC. The escape byte is 0111101, which means that every time the flag-like pattern appears in the data, the extra byte is stuffed. The extra byte, that is the escape byte, is stuffed to tell the receiver that the next byte is not a flag. Next we will see about transition phases. So a PPP connection goes through phases which can be shown in this transition phase diagram. This transition diagram, which is again a FSM, starts with dead state. It will start with this dead state. In this state, there is no active carriers, that is at the physical layer, and the line is quiet. There is no data to send. When one of the two nodes start the communication, the connection will go into the establishment or established state. In this state, options are negotiated between two parties. If the two parties agrees that they need authentication, then the system need to do the authentication. This is optional. Otherwise, the parties can simply start the communication, that is, it will go for the next state. The data transfer takes place in this open state. When a connection reaches this state, the exchange of packets can be started. The connection remains in this state until one of the endpoint wants to terminate the connection, either sender or receiver. In this case, the system will go into a terminate state. The system remains in this state until the carriers in the physical layer signal is dropped, which move the system again into the dead state. This is all about this particular chapter. Thank you.